Is this the face of Memnon, Black Prince of Ethiopia, slain by Achilles at Troy circa 1190 BC? Is this the face of Memnon? We don't know, but I'm taking a guess. I'm using my imagination. As Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. This gentleman, he's not Memnon, but then it needn't necessarily be Memnon, because Memnon was the name the Greeks gave that famous warrior at Troy. This gentleman's name is Maiherpri, and he is a gentleman of a dark complexion, which we know as being black. And this is the mummy of Maiherpri, discovered in his tomb, and with not much more in it. It did have 2 bows and 72 arrows, but not a lot of great goods, except it had an unusual sarcophagus or coffin arrangement. It had 3 coffins, one to sit inside the other, except they didn't fit. And that's what perturbed me. Why didn't they fit? Egyptians making the tomb coffins would have made them to fit, unless one was made, the original one was made a long way ago. Of course, if you go to Egypt, which I strongly recommend you do, if you want to slip back into 5,000 years of history, then you will come, as you cross over the Nile, you head towards Ramesses III's mortuary temple, you come to the 2 colossus, of which the Greeks named the Colossus of Memnon. They named it because they thought these were the statues of Memnon, but in actual fact, they're the statues of Amenophis, I think, Amenophis III, the grandfather of Tutankhamun. And behind him is the ruins, of course, of his mortuary temple. Now, in ancient times, earthquakes have destroyed these long since they were built. But in the old days, when the statues warmed up in the midday sun, they issued out a cry. And the Greeks thought it was the cry from Memnon to his mother, the goddess Eos, the goddess of the dawn, that when she rose, they cried out to their mother. But of course, this is purely legendary on behalf of the Greeks. This is not Memnon or nothing to do with Memnon. But you can see from the people down below the size of these gigantic statues. And if you're lucky to go and look at the feet, you will see where the Emperor Hadrian left graffiti for us mortals to go and discover. First of all, we should discover more about Memnon from the Greek side of the story. And I would like to put right an error. I said Amenophis. It isn't. It's Amenophis III. It wasn't. It was Amenhotep III, circa 1300 BC. Right, so we've got Memnon turning up at Troy, according to the Greeks, turning up at Troy and with a great army from somewhere. And that somewhere we're going to try and ascertain. He arrives at Troy with a great army and he fights, let me have a look at my little notes, Achilles, I think it's Achilles. Yeah, Achilles, who is the son of Nestor. Everybody, well, in Greek mythology and classics would have known Nestor. And he kills him. Memnon kills Achilles, and Nestor, the old father, wants to fight Memnon. But Memnon says, no, you're far too old, I can't fight you. So Achilles says, then I will fight you. And according to Greek mythology, Zeus, the best and all and the mightiest, says, no, let these two fight. Don't any of the gods help either one of them. Let them both fight. So they fought, and Memnon, sadly, was slain. His last look must have been in Achilles' fearsome face. So that's what we've got. So let's have a look at Maiherpri. Oh, and incidentally, Ethiopia is not where it is today. Ethiopia in ancient Egyptian times was Nubia, the place of people who were on the dark side, which we call black. Maiherpri, I think, was the capital of Nubia. And they were, of course, conquered by the Egyptians, and these Egyptians would have taken them into their concubines, certainly, and certainly into their courts. Now, what I'm trying to say is, I hope I have shown from my Odysseus story that Odysseus arrived in Egypt just before the sea people arrived. And I would like to put forward the theory that, in actual fact, although the Greeks were at Troy, they were not the main component. The sea people were. The Greeks were only part of it. And when the Greeks had had enough of it, when Troy was destroyed, they decided they'd had enough and were going home to their wives, who were now being unfaithful. So they leave, but the sea people decide they're going to go on and come down the Turkish coast, down into Syria and down and attack Egypt. And so I think that the Pharaoh that was, how can I put it? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think if the sea people were attacking Troy, Pharaoh, who I say is Ramesses III, would have sent aid. And I think he sent this young prince, this Ethiopian prince, this dark-skinned prince, to Troy with an army to help the Trojans against the sea people. And it didn't work. So what do we know from the Greeks or mythology about Memnon? We hear he dies, he's dead, of course Achilles killed him, and the Greeks want to pay their homage to him. They are well, they like heroes, and the Greeks wanted to pay their homage to them and set fire to him on a funeral pyre. But we are told that the goddess Eos, the goddess of the dawn, begged Zeus to make him immortal. And I think the Greeks understood immortality as being mummified. Yes, I'm using my imagination, because we are told that Eos, the goddess Eos, had a husband called, bear with me a moment, stand fast, the front rank, Tithonius. And she wanted Zeus to make him immortal. So Zeus said he would. And he made him immortal, but unfortunately, he didn't keep him youthful. He just made him immortal, and he got older and older and older, more wizened, more withered, until Eos was forced to put him into a room and close the door. And he withered away. And I think that was the Greeks' answer to mummification. Put him in a room and close the door is a tomb. So Eos begs Zeus to let her son Memnon be made immortal. And I don't think that it was Eos. I think it was an Egyptian priest. This is imagination. It was an Egyptian priest who begged the Greeks to let them mummify Memnon. And so they mummified him. And they made him a coffin. And this time they made it almost on the site of Troy. And they shipped it home to, and I'm saying it's Egypt. And when it gets to Egypt, or should I say, the news goes on to Egypt that Memnon is dead. And Memnon arrives in Egypt in his coffin, but they've also made the other two coffins to go inside, for him to go inside the main coffin. And it doesn't fit. When they excavated the tomb, they found the coffins there. And one of the archaeologists made the comment that if he got fed up in sleeping in the one coffin, he could get out and go and sleep in the other. Which is a very nice story to explain why the coffins didn't fit. But I think the coffins didn't fit because they were made, one was made a long way away and the dimensions going back were wrong. They made the coffins and when they got there, they didn't fit. So now we go to the tomb of Maiherpri, and it was Tomb KV61, I think, in the Valley of the Kings. No, it isn't, it's KV36 in the Valley of the Kings. And they placed him in it. As I said, he had 2 bows and 72 arrows, and the canopic jars for the heart and the body parts to go in, but not a lot more. But unfortunately, the tomb is a different age to him. It's about 1300 BC. So, is it his tomb? And if so, then my theory is wrong. But the Egyptians were quite good at kicking out somebody out of a tomb and putting somebody in it. Queen Tawzeret was kicked out, and the following pharaoh took her tomb over. So, and what is this young Nubian, this young prince, doing in the Valley of the Kings? This is for royalty. And he's 24 years of age, so the autopsy has disclosed of his body. So what's he doing in the Valley of the Kings? And 8 feet away is another tomb. They call it the Virgin Tomb. It was a tomb that was being prepared but never finished. There's one thing about a tomb. It's meant for somebody, yet it was never finished and never filled. So who was that tomb meant for? Was it meant for Maiherpri? Was Maiherpri Memnon? After all, we've got the same letter. It's not much of a coincidence, but it's Maiherpri and Memnon are pretty much is the same letter to begin with. And there we have Memnon, who's being placed in this tomb, and my goodness, they found his tomb, his coffin doesn't fit the other coffins. Now, if that tomb has been opened and somebody slung out and Memnon put in, there should be a bit of evidence. And the evidence I have to present is by Howard Carter, who found Tutankhamun's tomb in 1925, I think, 1922, 25. And he says when he excavated Memnon's tomb, or Tomb KV66, he found outside it, in a casket, a little box, a pair of leather, very nice, they were a piece of leather, and they were all cut out like a string vest or a string pair of underpants in leather. And on the box was the name of Maiherpri. And he said he thought the tomb had been opened during the Ramessene period. Of course, there were, I think, 11 Ramesses. Ramesses III we would like, but there was another 7 or 8 after him. So Carter doesn't say which Ramessene period it was, but I'd like to think it's Ramesses III. There's another instance which is, it helps a little bit, insofar that Ramesses III, when he's old, sends his men into the Valley of the Kings, or his priests into the Valley of the Kings, to search for the tomb of his son. And his sons haven't died yet, or the sons we know had. So who is this son he sent in his priests to find in the Valley of the Kings? Could Maiherpri be his son from an Egyptian or a Nubian concubine? But whoever he was powerful enough or recognised enough to be buried in the Valley of the Kings. You have to excuse an old man. So there, I think, is the story of Maiherpri and Memnon. It's something for scholars to think about. One thing they can do, and I have written to the Cairo Museum on a number of occasions, to do a carbon testing of Maiherpri's body to see if it matches up with 1300, which is without, that doesn't make him Memnon, or is it in the Ramesses III's reign of 1200 to 1260, 1280? No, 1180. If it is, if the carbon dating says it is, then we've got a stronger case for this to be Memnon. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll try and do you another one tomorrow. Bye.